Welcome to Studio 901. I'm your host, Kiana Faircloth. At Studio 901, we are continuing with our tradition of spotlighting local, emerging, and established artists that are creating right here in the DMV. With us, you'll discover some of the area's greatest treasures as we unlock some of our best kept secrets and hear some never before told stories about living the creative life. And if you don't know, this show is DCTV's greatest exploration of the art that is among us. Joining me today on Studio 901 is stand-up comedian Kasaun Wilson. Originally from Jersey City, New Jersey, but now living in Washington, D.C., Mr. Kasaun Wilson is one of the brightest up-and-coming stars in the country. Kasaun is a stand-up comedian who has been touring colleges, churches, and theaters all around the country. While earning his Bachelor of Fine Arts in Acting from the historic Howard University, the Mecca, in Washington, D.C., Kasaun Wilson started an acting and stand-up comedy career that is still garnering him national attention today. He won D.C. Improv's Funniest College Student competition representing Howard University, has opened up for some of the country's greatest acts, including Grammy Award winner Ty Tribbett, Greg Proops, Gary Owen, and featured for Donnell Rawlings, and has also been highlighted in the Washington Post for his acting work on Sanctified at the Lincoln Theater and Standing on the Edge in the DC Black Theater Festival. Known for his quick wit and setting himself apart for being one of the country's brightest clean comedians, Kasaun Wilson has featured in some of this country's greatest venues, including the DC Improv, the Universal Circus, the Ohio State University, the stand-up comedy New York Comedy Club, and the world-famous Comedy Store in Los Angeles, California, to name a few. All of these great shows led to Kasaun being featured on Season 9 of NBC's Last Comic Standing. Whether it's on the silver screen, the stage, or with a mic in his hand, Studio 901 had to grab him up and spotlight him for this season because he'll be a household name real soon. Welcome to Studio 901, Kasaun Wilson.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
To start out, we always ask our guests, at what age did you start? And for you, what age did you start being funny or knowing that you were a comedian?
All right. So being on stage is probably 2007 when I started. Being funny is when I was a kid. Like, you just be around family. And, I mean, there's so many drunk uncles you can have in your lifetime when you just start getting stories eventually. So I would say being funny, it was just something that just came naturally. I was always the class clown, so I've known my whole life. And but being actually taking it seriously as a career, I would say like 2007.
Okay, all right. Well, who would you say are some of your inspirations, some comedians that you've looked up to?
You know, it's funny. I consider myself to be like an artist, so it's not just comedy that inspires me. Like, I do have comedians like Dick Gregory and Bill Cosby, and Chris Rock and Chappelle and Seinfeld and Louis C.K. And even local people like Sean Sarvis and Eddie Bryan and Tony Woods and all these people inspire me. But I'm just an artist, so just hearing like Corey Henry and Snarky Puppy and just people that you would never expect. Like my favorite artist of all time is the Nicholas Brothers.
Okay.
Like, if I can be like I will never tap dance.
They were such entertainers, you
right,
know?
Right. Like, if I can make people feel the way that the Nicholas Brothers make me feel, then in comedy, I think I'll be all right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, when did you first realize that you wanted to not just be a comedian, but a clean comedian, one that doesn't use, you know, the expletives that we can hear and come to expect a lot of times from comedians?
Right. So, I don't know. All right. So I'll tell you this. So I was a church kid.
Okay.
So I tried to when I first started, I was listening to like a lot of Bernie Mac and Patrice O'Neal and people like that. So I tried. But I'm just not first of all, like, I've been in church my whole life. I take my relationship with God very seriously. And then two, I just don't even, I don't even curse that good. So like I was like 15, I was like 15, 18 years behind on like learning how to curse. So when I did, it was just terrible. Like, I wasn't even good at it.
It didn't come naturally.
Yeah,
like
it's just, you can't curse it and not sound natural. So it was just terrible. The jokes were terrible that I told when I tried to
Right.
curse. So it wasn't necessarily about choosing to be clean more so than it was choosing just to be myself.
All right. Now, being a clean comedian, how have you been received? Because you are clean, does it change the gigs that you take, or how has that experience been for you?
It doesn't really change anything. The cool part about what I do is that people don't notice.
Okay.
But you'll have like a couple of older women call to me like, baby, I really appreciate that you didn't cuss or nothing.
Okay.
You don't need to do all of that. Like my grandmother, that's all she cares about. My grandmother doesn't care if I can be homeless
Yeah.
and do open mics on the street corner. If I don't curse, like in her mind, I'm doing like Madison Square Garden.
I know that's
So that's
right.
all my grandmother cares about.
You're
But
like, baby, you don't have to curse to be funny now.
that's all she says. Like I'll just be like, Grandma, I just had the biggest show of my life. It was like 10,000 people there. And she was like, well, did you cuss? Like, it's like,
Yes,
Grandma, that's
Grandma.
not the point. It was the biggest night of my life. And you care about a couple words. But it doesn't change what I do. I just try to be funny. I don't want to be the guy who like comes in and is like, clean comedy is the blah. Like I'm not
Yeah.
holding the flag. I just want to be funny and then just happen not to curse. The same way I don't want to be known as a black comedian or
Okay.
a Christian. It's just all of these titles that you can give yourself, which are true,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be funny because I'm black. I want to be funny because I'm funny.
There you
If that
go.
makes
You don't
sense.
want to be put in a box. That's fair.
Right. Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Now, according to you, what is stand-up comedy, you would say? What is it?
Funny.
First and foremost, you got to be funny.
Right. Right. Because you have people who try to like make this big political point and then it's not funny and then people are like, you're right, but I want my money back.
Right.
Yeah, like,
Crickets.
Thank you. Run for president. Do not run for comedian because I would not vote for you. So
There you go.
stand-up comedy is funny, but it's also an opportunity to say how you feel, which is what I love the most about it. Like
All
I
right.
graduated with a theater degree from Howard, and it's pretty much the same thing. So
All right.
being in theater and acting is the exact same thing. The same principles I learned studying theater are the same principles I use in comedy, but I get to write my own script. So
There
I get
you
to
go.
say what I love. I get to say how I love it. I get to say, you know what this comedy is? I get to say things that none of you people can say. Because people laugh, I get to say it. Like I can offend anybody in the world, and they'll be like, "Ah!"
Right.
So it's beautiful. It's the purest form of expression to me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, when we return, we'll talk more to Kasaun Wilson on how he developed and maintains his own brand of comedy. Stay close. We'll be right back. This is Studio 901.
And I can't change, even if I try, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm. 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 She keeps me warm.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Love is kind. Love is patient.
When they test you, stand firm and move only when you hear the seatbelt click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Welcome back to Studio 901. I'm chatting with stand-up comedian Kasaun Wilson. How do you develop your material, Kasaun, and what sort of goes into the process of you coming up with the jokes for your gigs?
Okay, so people always ask, like, how do you write jokes? Do you sit down? And I've never sat down and wrote a joke in my life. Like 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, I'm just gonna sit down and write jokes. Some people really do that,
Yeah.
but I just don't. So I'll read something in the paper, I'll see something on TV, or I'll just decide that I want to talk about my family for an hour, and I'll just go through stories. A lot of the jokes happen when my family gets together, we just go over old stories. And
Yeah.
my family is so wild that I could just tell the story verbatim, and people literally don't believe them. But you know, there are times that if I write a joke about social commentary or something that I really want to say or something I'm really passionate about,
Yeah.
I'll write down exactly what I feel. And that's the one part about my comedy that I appreciate the most, is that I don't necessarily write it to be funny, but I do write it to be real. So I write exactly how I feel. Like, my main goal is to make you feel exactly the way I felt before I wrote it as a joke. So,
Okay.
so if I was talking about slavery, I don't want to make slavery's not funny. There's nothing funny about it. There's nothing funny about a lot of topics in life. It's really all about perspective and point of view. So a lot of times I'll write if I can get as close to the original emotion as possible, like the anger that I feel when I talk about slavery or segregation or abuse or police brutality or any of these topics that I want to talk about. I want to get as close to the original feeling. Like the same way we all feel when we see something on the news and we see injustice or see something that's wrong
Yeah.
in our society. I want to get as close to that original emotion as possible, and then just think about how else I can feel about it.
Awesome. So it's coming from a very real place for you.
Which
then.
it
That's awesome.
is. I think that's what all art comes from. It comes from a real place.
There you
Like,
go.
you look at the greatest things in life that are funny, and it's like there's nothing funny about it at all. Like, I love Life, Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence.
Yeah.
What's funny about spending your life in jail? Like, there's nothing funny about that. Like, hey, here's a great comedy script. Let's write a movie about two people who are framed in a racist New York society, framed for a murder they did not commit, and spend the rest of their life in a Mississippi prison, and then get out when they're 90 to enjoy a Yankee Stadium baseball game.
Yeah.
I'm not signing up for that. But it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like really just the point of view. But the closer you can get to the reality of the situation, the funnier it is to me.
That's right. You got to laugh to keep from crying, right?
No, I think I still cry sometimes.
You cry on stage?
No.
No.
No, I don't cry on stage. But people have cried at shows.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
I tell stories about growing up without a dad, and instead of being like, I grew up without a father. Come on, everybody. How funny is that? I
Yeah.
really tell some of the pains and the hurt that came with that, and then just the natural stuff that happened to be funny that comes with that. So, yeah.
Well, what's the difference for you between writing jokes for, say, a play, a TV show, sitcom, and writing jokes for stand-up comedy? Is that process a little bit different for you?
It is. Writing for like a script or something is really, sometimes you have to get out of yourself and write for a character that has nothing to do with
Yeah.
you. So, I mean, you know theater, so getting into a character, you learn not to judge a character. So you can't play a character that you judge.
Right.
So if you don't dislike a character, it's hard for you to humanize that person. And when I write for myself, I get to just say whatever I want.
Right.
I cannot stress how beautiful it is to just have the liberty
It's very freeing,
to
I'm
say
sure.
whatever you want. There's no band there's no notes to play. It's literally, as long as the emotion that people feel is laughter or joy, then you get to say whatever you want. But when I write for myself, I try to think of course, branding, because I'm clean, so I try not to talk about anything that changed that. I don't talk about sex or anything on my show.
Yeah.
But
Well, let's go there for a minute. Let's
Yeah.
talk about how you're branding yourself.
Right.
What goes into that? You are a clean comedian. Now, is that necessarily how you want people to see you, or you just want to be able to show up to a gig and do what you do and be yourself? How do you brand yourself so that people know what they're getting?
I'm definitely not Kasaun Wilson, the clean comedian.
Right.
Right. But I'm also, there are some people who are like, don't call me a clean comedian, or don't call me a Christian comedian, don't call me a black comedian, don't call me an urban comedian. Like, I'm all of those things. I'm somebody's son. I'm Glenda's son. I'm Catherine's grandson. I'm African American. I'm a Christian. I love God. You don't love God? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, right.
All right, so
All right, Erica Campbell.
but I'm all of those things. So if you ever want to call me those things, that's fine. As long as you come to the shows. You know what's crazy? The people who want to call you stuff are the people who don't come.
Huh.
The people who come to the shows don't care.
Right.
They just laugh and it's funny. Like, if you come to my show, I could talk about God for an hour. I could talk about being black for an hour. I could talk about my crazy family for an hour. I could talk about myself and my insecurities growing up for an hour. And the people who come to the shows, they don't care. Like, they don't see me as a clean comedian. They just see me as a funny one.
Right.
So if you come to the shows, you won't really care. But the people online watching are like,
Yeah.
who are you? It's
Oh,
like,
gosh. Right. They're online on the other side of the
right.
screen. Hello.
Yeah, you gotta come to the shows to see. So.
What are some of the essential things or elements that go into a great show for you? Is there a formula that you feel, has to happen or work in order for that show to be, oh, that was an awesome show for me. That felt good. What has to be in place as far as a good show?
Like a good comedy show?
Mm-hmm.
It has to be funny. Like, all of the things that you can say at a comedy show. Like, I love a rack of different comedians. There are some who, like Chris Rock, where he'll break down, like if you took what Chris Rock said and just wrote it down on a piece of paper, you can teach a humanities class.
I'm quite sure.
Like I've quoted Chris Rock on a sociology paper. Mm-hmm. Like you can do that. And then there are some people where you may not talk about anything that has anything to do with social relevance.
Yeah.
But it just for that hour, you just forget about everything. It's just funny.
Yeah.
So it just has to be funny, first of all. And then second, for me personally, the art that I gravitate towards is the art that says something. Like just say something about something.
Yeah.
Like you have a platform. I want to be the person who has a platform. If you have a platform to reach 13 million people because you produce a DVD, just say something. Like I feel like as artists, we may not necessarily have a responsibility to say it, because if you're famous and you weren't famous before and weren't saying anything of social relevance, I don't think that denotes you saying something when you do.
Exactly.
But you have a platform to say something. So I gravitate towards a lot of art that does make a point, but does it in a way, it may be subtle, it may not, but you do make a greater point.
Mm-hmm. So. Absolutely. Well, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and early in the intro, I mentioned that you were on season 9 of NBC's Last Comic Standing. Now, tell me how audiences have treated you so far coming out of that experience. Have doors opened up? And
no, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. No. Yeah, Last Comic Standing was really, really cool. It was a linchpin in my history, I guess. It's something I'll never forget. Doors have opened up, but it really is all that you make it.
Yeah.
Really, it was inspiring to be in front of that kind of comedy royalty.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it was, the way I would describe it is, it made me want to work harder. So
yeah.
It's like going to Costco's with no money.
Okay.
Like, it was a really great, I filled up on samples.
Okay, there you go.
But I want to go back and buy stuff eventually.
Absolutely.
So it was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Awesome.
Not a lot of people can say that they went on Last Comic Standing, got a chance to meet some awesome people and awesome mentors and things of that nature. So it's something I'll never forget.
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, when we come back, we'll talk more with Kasaun Wilson about his life as a stand-up comedian and what the future holds for him. Stay right there. This is Studio 901.
Thank you, dear. Well, you're very supple. Just like I was at your age. Back then, I was a sex expert. Used to call me the buttered biscuit. I know about birth control, too. So you can ask me anything, baby.
Bedsider.org has birth control information and a lot more. And it's...
Have you had sex in this car yet?
Welcome back to Studio 901. Now, Kasaun Wilson, tell me, I know you want to be a full-time comedian at some point. Where are you in the process of making that a real-life dream come true?
I'm in the process of avoiding being homeless.
I'm sure.
Which means I have a job. I work as an accountant during the day, which a lot of people don't know. But it's like I absolutely want to pursue art full-time. Wow. So 2016 will be my last year working full-time. God forbid, right?
Yeah, claim it.
I'm not God, right?
Claim
but
it.
Yeah, I'm working towards it. I absolutely want to do comedy full-time, do art full-time, produce and direct and write scripts and do all of those things. But right now, the way it works is rent, Verizon. Yes. We can just count them up. Water, heat, lights.
Yes.
Eventually, Sally Mae. If you're watching this, my bad.
Oh, Sally Mae gonna get her money.
Listen.
Yeah, she gonna get it.
Listen.
She gonna get it.
Listen. Sally Mae didn't
what.
help me write one paper. I did 7 years of undergrad. Sally Mae wasn't there for any of them. As soon as I walked across the stage, I just got this call from Carolyn from Sally Mae.
Right.
Now it's the Department of Education. Listen.
No congratulations on your graduation.
No, nothing. No letter. Like, hey, it wasn't like, I feel like Howard could have at least been like, hey, we're going to pass you off to her now. Like,
right.
at least like,
Some kind of introduction.
So all of those things happen, but I know there is some point where you just have to jump out there and do it, and wisely, of course, but
Step out on faith.
yeah, step out on faith.
There you
But
go.
you don't step out on stupidity.
Right.
There's a
and
difference.
Now, speaking of that,
There's
let's
a
go here
difference.
for a minute. What
Yeah.
advice would you give to someone who is an up-and-coming comedian that's trying to, get out there, get their name out there? What advice would you give them?
Stop asking questions. Stop asking for advice and just do it. Like, I just feel like there are so many people who take their gifts to the graves because they keep asking questions. Like, there's only a certain point. Actually, one of my professors at Howard, who's probably my greatest artistic influence, his name was Al Freeman Jr. God rest his soul. But he played Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Spike Lee's Malcolm X.
I remember.
Yes, that guy was my acting professor. How cool is that, right?
Wow.
So he was the one that got me into stand-up. That's a long story. But the one thing he said before he passed was, I'm asking him like all of this great advice. Like, I want to do this and I want to do this and I have this and I have all of these jokes. And he just sat there and listened to me for like a good 20 minutes. And then he was just like, just do it. Like, there's only so much talking that you can do before you get there. I mean, of course, you always have the conversations about networking and you have conversations about professionalism and making sure that who you are, integrity and character, and making sure that who you are off stage is who you are on stage, because people are always watching. Like, those are always
That's
conversations
true.
that you always have with people, and those are, be on time and make sure you always keep yourself level-headed and keep the right people around you. But I feel like those are conversations you can have about life.
Yeah.
Specifically when it comes to art, just do it. There's only so many Facebook posts you can make about what you want to do before you do something.
That's right. You got to do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
You made a really good point about being the same person on stage that you are off stage. Especially, I can imagine in comedy, people can definitely see right through if you're not being real, if you're being fake, right?
But you're not necessarily the same person.
Okay.
You're not. Like, we're having this interview, right?
Yeah.
And I'm me. But when I'm on stage, it has to be a heightened level of you.
You got to turn up.
It's 200 people listening to what you're... Who talks to 200 people at one time with
Right.
nobody else contributing to the conversation? Like, that's as narcissistic as you can possibly be in life. And as much as I enjoy this interview and, acting like there's no one else here, when I'm with my family, I'm much different. I'm just the young guy who takes the trash out. I'm not Kasaun Wilson, the comedian. So
Right.
the dynamic is different.
You're you, but amplified.
Right,
on
right.
Stage.
So off stage, it's the same thing with comedians. There are comedians who are the exact same on stage, but it's just amplified because you're much more important on stage than you are off stage. I'm just Kasaun.
Right. Now tell us, what does the future look like for you? What can we expect to see from stand-up comedian Mr. Kasaun Wilson?
A whole lot. Hopefully I'm alive. I just feel like we should all start with that.
Yes.
I plan to live. But second, last year, or 2015, I filmed my first stand-up comedy DVD, Under Construction, Volume 2.
And you self-produced that, right?
Yes. Yeah, I executive produce everything.
Big deal.
You know what, though? I don't see it as a big deal, but I just feel like, why not? I actually have a hashtag or a movement called Dream Takers. And it just centers around the fact that a lot of us work so hard to get a door open for us.
Yeah.
When at the end of the day, you can just build a house and decide where the door goes for yourself. And that's just the way I feel. Like, I'm always going to work hard. I'm out performing at least 6 nights a week and just working and traveling and working. But at the end of the day, Comedy Central hasn't called me yet. So why not just go to the Ivor Aldrich Theater on Howard's campus and produce it myself? And then they'll get it. Somebody's going to get it eventually. So the future holds a lot. So we have filming my second DVD next year called Church Boy.
Awesome.
Which you get to hear all the stories about me growing up in church and the craziness that happens. Like, people think that church is like boring, and it's not. It's the wildest, funniest place that you can be if you get to. And it's so wild how many experiences everybody shares. So I'll be filming that this year, and we're doing so many shows this year. We're doing a series called Art, where we'll have like a whole bunch of different artists, from like singers and dancers and spoken word artists and comedians and just musicians. It's going to be wild. So
With
it's gonna be
all
a
of
big
that
year.
happening, tell the folks where they can find out more about you, Mr. Kasaun Wilson.
You can find me on MySpace. No, I'm joking. Like, do people still have Black Planet pages? Like, if
I
you
hope
have
not.
You have one?
No, I don't have a Black
I thought
Planet page.
I'm about to say you have an iPhone. Why do you have an iPhone with a Black Planet app? It's very discouraging. All right, so you can find me on my website, mrkasaunwilson.com.
Okay.
I'm also on every social media website at the life of KAY. Because Kasaun sometimes a made up black name, so it's hard for people to spell. So
Okay.
The life of KAY. That's it.
There you go. Well, we'll be right back. You're watching Studio 901 on DCTV.
In your new role, we help you help. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who once took care of you.
Thank you for tuning in to Studio 901. It's been so fun sitting down and talking with Kasaun Wilson. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
He is definitely someone to look out for, whether he's on the silver screen, the stage, or performing stand-up comedy at your nearby venue. Remember, Studio 901 spotlights emerging artists from all over the DMV that are creating and performing right here in our own backyard. If you want to find out more about what you saw today, hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at YourDCTV, or visit our website, dctv.org. Before you leave, I want to leave you with this quote from English sculptor and artist Henry Moore. To be an artist is to believe in life. Join us for another episode of Studio 901, where we just might spotlight you. I'm Kiana Faircloth. Until next time.